Hey everyone, it's Sam from Sugar Spun Run, and today we are making butter pecan cookies. I hope you're ready for a quick, easy, and incredibly flavorful cookie. This recipe could not be any easier, and there's no chilling required, so let's begin by preheating our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now the first thing I'm going to want you to do today is toast your pecans. These are butter pecan cookies, and we want the pecan flavor to really shine. You'll measure out 1.5 cups, or I like to do 1.5 heaping cups of pecan halves, and just scatter them over a baking sheet and pop them in the oven for 5 minutes. Once they're toasted, remove them from the oven. We're going to let them cool down a little bit because they're obviously going to be very hot right out of the oven, and then place them on a cutting board and just coarsely chop them. We'll set those aside while we prepare our cookie dough. Now this recipe starts with 1 cup of melted unsalted butter. I love starting with melted butter. It really just infuses flavor throughout the whole cookie, gives you a soft and chewy texture. I could go on, but we'll stop there. Now the important thing to note is that your butter should be melted, but it shouldn't feel warm to the touch. Let it cool down, otherwise it will end up melting your sugars and you'll end up with a greasy cookie dough. Speaking of sugars, our next ingredient is 1.25 cups of firmly packed dark brown sugar. And I really do recommend dark brown sugar in this recipe. The extra flavor from the molasses just really makes this a super incredibly flavorful cookie. It is going to accent the flavors from the pecans, and it's going to also help make the cookie nice and soft. Can you tell I like a nice soft cookie? I keep using that phrase. We'll add this in with our butter, trying not to splash it everywhere. We are still going to be using some granulated sugar. We'll add 1/2 cup of that. And we'll stir the butter and sugars together until they're well combined. All right, this is looking pretty good. So now we can add our eggs. I'm just going to use my dish from the brown sugar. That way I can crack these separately. It's still not dirty, another dish. So your eggs should be room temperature, and we're going to be adding 1 large egg, and we're also going to be adding 1 egg yolk. So you can save this egg white if you'd like to make another recipe. Maybe you want to make meringue cookies. But do not add it to your cookie dough. We're just going to be adding the yolk. So, almost lost that there. If we were to add the white, it would make the cookie spread a lot more than I want it to. Adding just this extra yolk helps make the cookie more tender, more chewy, and just more moist. It's also, as a bonus, going to make it so that our dough is not going to need to chill in the refrigerator. I love that about this recipe. We can just bake it once everything's mixed up. We're also going to add 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And once again, we'll stir everything together until it's completely combined. No chilling, no mixer needed. This is a great, easy recipe. All right, let's grab a separate mixing bowl. And to this, we're adding 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Do make sure that you measure your flour properly here. I really recommend using a kitchen scale if you have one. It would be 375 grams of flour. Don't pack your flour into the measuring cup. Using too much can leave you with a dry cookie dough. And this cookie dough is already not super soft, so you don't want to accidentally use too much flour. We're also going to be adding a teaspoon of cornstarch, 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, and 3/4 teaspoon of salt. This is just table salt. I do recommend grabbing yourself some flaky sea salt, which we can add to the cookies after they've finished baking. We'll whisk together these ingredients. We want to make sure everything is nicely combined. Those leavening agents are nicely incorporated in with the flour. Okay, let's bring back our butter mixture, which smells amazing right now. And we'll just gradually add the dry ingredients to the wet. As I mentioned, this can be a slightly stiffer dough, so add the flour mixture gradually. If you add it all at once, it's going to be really difficult to mix and to get that gluten completely absorbed. Oh, and you're more likely to make a mess, but evidently I do that anyway. So I'll add the flour in like 3 parts. Part number 2. And final part number 3. All right, now let's add those toasted pecans. And something I like to add, not mandatory, but 1/2 cup of toffee bits adds a really nice extra dimension to the flavor and texture of the cookie. These are typically sold by the chocolate chips in the grocery store, or you could break up your own toffee. That would be fine too. I'm just using the plain toffee bits, but they also sell some coated with chocolate. There's nothing wrong with using those instead. Let's mix everything together. All right, once everything's mixed up, we can go ahead and bake right away. So I like to scoop the cookie dough into rounded 1.5 tablespoon size scoops. I will try to remember to link to my favorite ever cookie scoop in the description. And you could just drop these on the cookie sheet just like that. Nothing wrong with that. We'll do a couple just dropped. But what I like to do is scoop the dough and then just roll it between my palms to have a nice smooth ball of dough, which is just going to make the cookies more uniform. We'll drop one more. We'll take these over to our 350-degree Fahrenheit oven where they're going to need to bake for about 10 to 12 minutes. All right, these have been in for just 10 minutes, but I can see some really light browning happening around the edges, so I want to pull them out of the oven. Also, if the edges look slightly underdone, mine don't really, but if your edges look lightly golden and your centers look slightly underdone, still pull them out of the oven. We're going to let these cool completely on the baking sheet, so any residual baking that needs to happen will happen on the baking sheet. Now, as an added bonus, within like a minute or so of the cookies coming out of the oven, I like to take some sea salt, grind that over the cookies. Optional, but oh my gosh, sea salt on a butter pecan cookie is just next level. Now these are fragile when warm, so let them cool completely before you dig in. I absolutely cannot wait for you to try these at home. If you do, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'm so happy because it's so good.